And once again, good evening. Welcome back to the Shadow Gallery. I am, as always, your host, James Donnelly. As we discussed last night, yes, this is the second part of this week's New Comics Bitches! So, shall we move on? I think we shall. So, much better. Now, last night, we wrapped up things with talking about one of the bigger independent releases from this past week, which is the last issue of The Boys, issue 72. So now we're going to start off continuing with the independents, and then we'll get to DC, and then we'll get to our books of the week. So this one may be shorter, maybe longer, because I'm probably going to have a lot to say about some of the picks of the week here. So let's start it off right. Okay, so we're going to start off with going back to Valiant. We are starting off with Bloodshot number 5. I gotta tell you, I am, aside from the unfortunate first issue of Shadow Man, I am really in love with Valiant right now. They have some really, really excellent books out there, and Bloodshot is absolutely one of them. Basically what we have here is that we open up with, because we kind of ended, the last issue with that, Bloodshot and Surge, or Melissa, and the nurse Kara, who we also found out was a combat medic in Afghanistan, or Iraq, or one of the Middle East wars that's going on. They're basically kind of planning on teaming up with Bloodshot to take down the people that are chasing them, which of course is Project Rising Spirit, or PRS. But this issue actually opens with Melissa having a very bad dream about where she grew up, basically, which is in the PRS labs. There's this huge kind of, Nurse Ratched kind of character. I mean, huge, fat woman, calls herself Gamma. Why that is, unknown, but I'm sure that we will figure it out sooner or later. And basically what is going on here is that there is a team that is being guided to take them, not down, but take them in, by Project Rising Spirit. Once, because of course Melissa wakes up, there's a bit of a conversation between Melissa and Kara, and Melissa's, basically saying, you're putting an awful lot of trust and faith into, basically this nanite-driven, super soldier that you just met. So why is that? And the question doesn't really get answered, but because essentially they're interrupted by this this team that all have these very specific abilities. And just the way that they converse with each other is very interesting, especially the way that it's presented on the page. And so they are captured because basically they're being used, strangely enough, as bait to get, to basically allow Bloodshot to get inside Project Rising Spirit to take them down. Bloodshot has teamed up with Dr. Karetich, who was part of course, the team that helped to design Bloodshot, and is the one that kind of captured him in the first issue, And he, and Bloodshot is very uncertain about him, whether or not he will be an ally or an enemy. But for the moment, he's using him because right now he's just an asset and nothing more. He can use his intelligence, both literal and his actual physical intelligence that he has about Project Rising Spirit, to break into their base, essentially to find out, like any kind of cyborg would want to do, is find out who he really is, or who he was, at least. And of course, he's, kind of meditating in this spot, and of course, the girls being captured is all part of his secret plan, because he gave Kara some nanites in her bloodstream that allow him to basically override the security at the PRS compound, which has these waves of security which are supposedly just impenetrable. They're like using super lethal force on one level, and then like lethal force on the second level. But he's able to bypass them pretty quickly, because obviously he can take a couple of shots pretty well, as long as he doesn't get hit in the head too many times. And that is one of the things that, kind of one of his memory avatars kind of talks to him about, is that, we, try not to take too many hits to the head. But, what he runs into, of course, is trouble of a whole different sort, and it is this team of, they have these very specific, they are basically kind of called their very specific set skills. Like, one is pilot, one is gunner, one is Psyot, one, and, we kind of get, more of these links to the other parts of the Valiant universe here. But, I mean, what ultimately, helps to differentiate this is not just, Dwayne Straczynski's really terrific writing and characterization. The art is also is just fantastic. I love the art in this book. But also just how really truly twisty, bendy, and suspenseful of a read it is. Because it's not, it's not jam-packed with humor, but it does have these nice, quieter moments that allow us to, when all hell does break loose, and it does in this issue, that when that comes, that has more of a punch to it. Because that's something that storytellers forget a lot, and I think this is something I've probably harped on before, is that you can't just do a film or a book or a comic book or TV where it's just a never-ending onslaught of and this especially pertains more to kind of horror / suspense films, but also to, not quite to action films, because you can definitely have, kind of an almost all-out action film. But you still have to slow things down. You have to give the characters a chance to breathe, because if you don't care what's going on, if you don't care about who is involved and what's happening, it takes you out of it. And that's one of the things that a really good comic book can do, is bring you character moments, bring you quiet, so that when things do ramp up again, either quiet or humor, something that takes the edge off, so that when it does become edgy again, it has more punch. So that's exactly what Bloodshot does, and so this was, again, a terrific read, an absolute 4.5 out of 5 for Bloodshot number 5. Moving along, with the Valiant universe, we're now into Archer and Armstrong number 4. This is kind of quickly becoming one of my favorite fun reads, because this is, Fred Van Lente, who's writing this. It's definitely very tongue-in-cheeky. It reminds me of not quite so much of what Aaron is doing with Wolverine and the X-Men, but definitely has a little bit of that bite to it. It's a little bit satirical. It's it's a lot of fun. I mean, even they're in the opening where you have the narration. The narration just basically says, "Screw it." You know what? We're just going to get to the story. And so, I mean, it's just touches like that that make this book really, really fun. And of course, I mean, the characters of Armstrong and Obadiah Archer are really fun as well. And just the whole layout of this book, I mean, because we have these these kind of Nazi llamas who are they have been guarding the Boon for so long, kind of this last piece. And of course, the archers, the mom and pop archer, have come with the rest of the pieces of the Boon, so that they can, all the other keys, so that they can get to it. And so there is a geomancer on the inside who is trying to talk them again out of releasing the Boon, because it will bring about the destruction of all mankind. But as Archer and Armstrong make their way into the Nazi llama stronghold, and it's funny because they all have like these little Hitler mustaches. I mean, it's and at one point, Mary Maria asks, why do you have is that why you have those little mustaches? And one of them just answers, no, we just like them. Just very, just kind of, these kind of throwaway jokes here and there, these throwaway little bits of humor, and we have kind of this kind of epic battle between between Obi and Armstrong and the archers and the llamas. I'm just saying the word llama is just when I think of a llama, I always think of Caddyshack. So that's me, llama. Anyway, so we do have a big secret of Obadiah's that has been revealed, is that he is not the birth child of the archers. He is, in fact, he was taken or purchased from a secret government laboratory, which explains some of the skills that he has and why he's always kind of the best of all of their quote-unquote children. Is that he is special, and even the llamas see something very special in him. And as it has throughout the book, it has these these little tiny descriptions of the fighting style that that Obi uses throughout the book, but it kind of gets at some points it gets countered and scrambled by the llamas. But Mary Maria is there to bail his ass out with a Nikola Tesla gun. So basically it's a gun that just shoots electricity, because she begins to understand that yes, everything is indeed a lie, and that all the archers really want is immortality. And here comes Armstrong, whose eyes have mostly grown back after being blinded in the previous one by Mary Maria. And Mary Maria does, of course, express a great deal of regret about taking the life of Sister Thomas Aquinas. But the Boon is open, and all hope starts to seem lost until Obi gets a visit from kind of his guiding spirit, which is actually Aram or Armstrong's brother, the one that did actually open the Boon. And he's been trying to keep it closed ever since, because he's been atoning for his sins for the last several thousand years in kind of this limbo. And he basically kind of gives him basically the way to stop it. And boom, the world is saved, but not, again, not without cost, is that people are lost. The geomancer that the llamas have been holding hostage for so long is accidentally dies during all of this, and this unfortunately is going to bring about perhaps an even, not a bigger threat, but a more personal threat to Archer and Armstrong. So it's just, again, the book has so many, I mean, the characters of Archer and Armstrong are so incredibly well defined at this point in time that, you know, they have, you know, these little moments where, you know, of course, you know, Obi is trying desperately not to swear, and, you know, Armstrong is, you know, he is, you know, always, you know, kind of, you know, living La Vida Loca, if you will. And, you know, definitely has, you know, kind of the zest for life that one would hope for. And it's just, you know, it's just packed with these great character moments that Van Lente puts in there, as well as, like I said, just a lot of really, really terrific humor. And just, it's another really, really terrific read. So, like I said, if you're, you know, I know that a lot of you are out there are not reading the Valiant titles because, you know, obviously, you know, this is another, you know, new comic thing. You know, it's a lot of money. But when the trades do start coming out, I do absolutely very highly recommend that you pick up some of these trades. I mean, you know, Exo Man-O-War, Harbinger, of course, and Bloodshot and Archer and Armstrong. So, because these are all really, really good books. So, and, you know, this arc ends, but, you know, really looking forward to the way that the next one is going to pick this up. So, moving along, so we have Buffy Season 9, number 15. This was a really big improvement on the previous issue. This one, story is by Janice Benson and Drew Greenberg, Drew Z. Greenberg, who also worked on Buffy and Angel. But this one's written by Drew Greenberg, and you can tell that he's really kind of done away with a lot of some of the problems that I had with the previous issue. Was that it was, you know, kind of, you know, it was very cutesy and had a lot of these, you know, like, almost like I said, kind of almost like these kind of gay, you know, these kind of gay stereotype moments. And this does away with a good deal of them. It leaves the cutesy stuff out, but allows for still cute things to happen. There is a difference, because when you're trying, I felt that the last issue was trying to be cute, and this one just succeeds in letting the characters of Devin and Billy evolve, so that they actually, you know, you can see them together as a couple, and you can see what they're trying to do for each other. And let their relationship grow. Let you see the, you know, kind of the romantic interest that they do have in one another, because obviously that was kind of a question mark about Devin. Not really so much, but, you know, at a certain point it did definitely get to that. But what we really have going on here, as far as the plot is concerned, is that, yes, Devin has basically opted to become Billy's watcher. And, of course, Billy is definitely not, you know, he's trying to teach himself how to be a slayer, you know, obviously without the ability to, you know, just kind of depend upon, you know, being a chosen one, you know, to be a potential, that he has to, you know, he has to learn how to do it. And, you know, this involves some abortive attempts at training, but of course all bets are called off when some zompires kind of take some hostages in a library. And of course this is a library that that Billy's grandmother Sky volunteers at. So again, and there's a lot of nice internal monologue moments where we see Billy as does he want to be the one that kind of charges headlong into danger, or does he want to kind of sit there and regroup and really assess the situation? And he definitely wants to be more of a planning prior to attack guy, but here he is with his moxie. I did enjoy that, where he just has no choice because someone he loves is in danger. And it happens to be at a library that he used to spend a lot of time hanging out in and around to escape the bullies that were basically picking on him. And that helps him and Devin gain access to the building. And of course, their whole plan is based, or at least Billy's whole plan is kind of based on stealth. But of course, once they get in, again, it's just one of those moments where it's just like, yeah, I kind of saw that one coming. But the two of them, finally had, as they are kind of getting ready to dust some zompires, they do share a kiss right before that, and it was like, oh, that is nice. But again, if that had felt forced, then I would have really questioned it. But it seemed like, okay, well, this, as Devin calls it, he says it's inspiration to do what he needs to do. So once they do actually succeed in taking care of the zompires and saving everybody, Billy and Devin head off to San Francisco and meet the Buffster, who basically tells Billy just how special he really is, because he has done something that is almost impossible to do, outside of at least kind of outside of her own group of friends, which is to kind of start from scratch to build himself up as a slayer of vampires. So he and Devin are very much welcome into their fold. So so that's where we are now. This arc is pretty much, it's just a little kind of a two-off there. But I'm sure that we'll be seeing Billy and Devin a lot in the future, because they have become, just in this one issue, really endearing characters. And that's because they let the characters breathe. They let them grow. And we got to see more of them that by not showing so much, by not over-explaining, by not trying to be so cute, by not trying to hit some of these rhythms that they were going for. And like I said, I totally get where Svensson was coming from when she wrote the last issue, but Greenberg really kind of came in and cleaned the whole thing up and really pushed it forward. The only problem that I really had with this issue was the art. Carl Moline and the other penciler, it felt kind of sloppy, even for Moline, and his style is a little bit kind of on the blocky side, but it felt like it had been a little overdone at some point. So I had to kind of take a bit of the score off. But this was, I would say, a 4 out of 5. So this is definitely a much better issue than the previous one, and a much more endearing look into these two new characters that will now be inhabiting the Buffy universe. So, well done to Buffy. Thief of Thieves, number 10. So basically we have both Augustus and Conrad Paulson seem to kind of have their balls in a vice throughout this issue. Is that, of course, Emma, the girlfriend, the damsel in distress, if you will, has been kidnapped, and the people, of course, they want they want a real, the people that have her, they want a real score. And Augustus, he's just too fucking proud, or too embarrassed to allow his father to kind of bail him out, and we get this moment in which we see Augie as a young man, and we see kind of maybe this was the end of his relationship with his wife and with his son, in which Augustus has been he's been arrested again, and Redmond says, I'll have this all taken care of, and basically Augustus just tells him to fuck off. That he doesn't want his help, doesn't need his help. I'm not a screw up. I'm not a fuck up like like James, like his wife's brother, who did die in one of their heists together, or who kind of sacrificed himself so that Conrad could get away, and so that they, and this, the fact that he actually said this to his son is something that pisses his wife off to no end. Gives him a nice slap across the face for his trouble, and he was trying to use her brother as a cautionary tale, but again, that's one of those things that unfortunately got taken too far, and basically, Conrad just says, look, you know what, fuck it, if you don't want my help, you're not going to get it, and you get to see what kind of man you're going to be while you're behind bars. If you're going to do the crime, you're going to continue to do the crimes, you better learn to start doing the time. And and he basically tells his own family to fuck off. And this, of course, leads us to where we are now. Augie is desperately scrambling to any contact that he has to see if he can, if there's any jobs that anybody can throw at him. And everybody is saying no way, because they're not going to be involved with him, because they know that there's another Paulson they would much rather deal with. Meanwhile, Conrad is being asked to meet up with Arno, who of course helped to bail Augie out, and he wants some repayment. Not so much, well, at least it seems like he wants repayment for what he did for Redmond in helping to bail out his son. But what he really wants is for him to finish the Venice job, which is basically the job that he walked away from in the very first issue. He actually, Arno even says, I don't even care that I had, that I did this for your kid. Lying to the FBI was fun for me. But right now, you need to do for me, there's not really an or else kind of situation, but he's like, basically you better do this job for me. And there's this great moment in which you just see where, Sean Martinborough's framed, the two men sitting across from each other, and basically Redmond, all of a sudden, he gets super deadly serious, just kind of leans into Arno, and you just see their two, just kind of from, the chest up, and, Arno is obviously struggling with something, and basically, Redmond is telling him, don't fuck with my family, don't fuck with my kid. And you see, and then there's a frame where he's pulling his hand away from Arno's balls, where he's grabbed him and he's been squeezing. And any man can attest out there, if that's ever happened to you, that hurts. He basically walks away from Arno again, Celia, of course, in tow, and she, of course, is put in the position of having to choose between doing the Venice job and getting well, or helping with Augustus, and seeing what they can do about getting Emma back. And Emma, while being held kind of as a comfortable hostage, at least it appears that way at first, until she starts looking at the bed that she's on. She's overhearing some of the talk in the next room of these other kind of evil scumbag gangsters, and the things that they've done and so on and so forth. And she kind of pulls back some of the sheets and pulls back just all the kind of covers off the bed, and she sees that there is there are blood stains, and pulls and sees the mattress, and it's just, and then even pulls off the mattress to the box spring, it's just soaked through with blood. So we know that she is in some seriously deep shit. And then, of course, Augustus finally, swallows his pride, reaches out to his pop, and and with his son and Celia there, basically he's saying, I'm not going to get involved with a bunch of psychopaths. I'm not going to do any kind of job for them. We're going to steal Emma back. So again, it's it's the thief. It's the thief thinking the long game, and that if he just plays with these guys, it's a zero-sum game, and he knows that he and Augie are going to end up on the losing end. So let's take away the only chip that they have to bargain with by stealing her away from them. So, I mean, this has got me pumped again for this title, because I thought the last couple issues that were written by Asmus have kind of slacked off ever since Spencer left the title. This one kind of got me back in the game. Martin Bros art, again, terrific, very evocative, very, dark and shady, and I just, and very kind of square-jawed, and I just really, really like the work that he's put in here. So this was a really good issue, very, very solid 4 out of 5 for Thief of Thieves number 10, because I'm really looking forward to seeing where it goes from here. So on to DC. So we're going to start with Batman and Robin number 14. Basically we have our zombies. They're still causing all sorts of trouble all around Gotham City, and of course here comes Batman with his kind of trank gauntlet to shut them all down. And of course there's even like this huge fat one that he pumps like 20 or 30 of the tranks into, and still doesn't fall down, but ends up falling out of a fucking window, brings Batman and one of the other ones with him. Batman, of course, saves them because he understands they're not real zombies, and takes some, takes a blood sample from one of these zombies, and tries to call Damian, tries to call Robin, and Robin is not picking up because he is being brought to the place where the Saturn Club is basically having their feast. And while all of these mindless whatever they are keep chanting "Eat to live," Robin is he's trying to plan his way of saving all these people that they brought there, because there are corpses there already. So he knows that he's really the only chance they've got. And of course, Batman's still screaming to Damian to answer him. But, it's until, kind of the very last moment that that Damian decides to make his move and, puts, some distance between, these zombies and him, and goes and heads all of the civilians into this kind of abandoned secret railway station, and that was apparently used to be used by I can't remember if it was supposed to be, I think it was maybe supposed to be FDR, but one of the presidents had this assembled, and of course one of the adults there is like how do you know all this, and how do you know how to drive a train? And of course, Damien just responds, I read. And then, Robin has his, kind of big moment where, the zombies come to attack again, and and he says, these people are under my protection. And then in the back, you hear our protection. And of course, there's Batman standing there because he was able to put together the pieces based on the blood sample and based on chemicals that were in the blood that had to do with environmental surroundings, that's where they were. So we get to see Batman as detective here, and of course Batman as super duper ass kicker. So when they kind of dust themselves off and head home, what Batman is trying to tell Damian is that this whole thing, as Damian describes, the leader of the Saturn Club is wearing this red hood. He basically reveals that this is actually the work of the Joker. He's doing whatever he can to to separate them and to really to really just do whatever he can to create even more chaos for Gotham, and to really split Batman apart from his sidekicks. But that's not quite so much in this issue, to be fair. I'm working off of knowledge from other issues that I'll get to in a bit. But they have this, Tomasi, writes the father-son beats really, really well, especially when it comes to the characters of Damian and Bruce, because Bruce just, he keeps saying, because he's saying that, I mean, you have to stop thinking that you're the smartest person in the room every time that you go in there. You have to have sometimes a better plan. Even Robin is making the argument that, I thought that civilians were, these are the people we're supposed to be protecting. Isn't that what we're doing? And of course, Bruce has a counter argument, and Damian has a counter argument, and he talks about, and Bruce keeps talking about, we take 4 steps forward, we keep taking 3 steps back. So how are we going to how are we able to keep this up in any real way? Because I'm just not feeling, Bruce is saying, I don't think this is going to work, because you don't seem to care about anybody but yourself. And Damian just kind of says that's not true. And he opens, he pulls out of his pouch and and puts on the counter, and then in the Batcave, one of Bruce's mother's pearls, and it brings actually a really surprisingly, shockingly sweet moment, an emotional moment to the book, and it's a really strong moment, because there is a moment where they actually are starting to really understand each other, and starting to grow, not just as kind of leader and sidekick, but as father and son, which is what this book has kind of been working towards, and has been working really hard, because obviously Robin has had some tough lessons, obviously with nobody, and just everything that he seems to do sometimes just really seems to stick in Batman's craw, because it kind of contravenes what he's always trying to teach him. And I think on both sides things are finally starting to sink in, and that's where I was surprised that the moment came, and I wasn't too sure if it really fit, but at the same time I was happy that it happened. The only real problem that I have again with this issue, because I was not a fan of the previous issue, but it was, for the most part, I do think that there are parts of issue 13 that were good, but there are moments. This book felt a lot more complete, but it has that really jarring, art separation, the art transition between the great work of Patrick Gleason and the really, really uber pencil-y work of Tomás Giorello. and again, that threw me. It just looked wrong. It felt wrong. It just didn't seem like they belonged in the same book at all. And I appreciate that, okay, well, basically when Batman's on the page, you've got Gleason drawing. When Robin's on the page, you've got Giorello drawing. So, I mean, I appreciate that they did separate it like that, but it wasn't necessary unless, like I said, unless Patrick Gleason really had moments to bring it about. Because, I mean, his work in this issue is fantastic. It's really, you know, I mean, emotions are very clear. You know, the action is so much more dynamic. And when Giorello comes in, it's just, the pacing of the book gets fucked up. So that's unfortunately still a real problem for me. And if it continues to go this way, you know, this might be one of those books. I mean, if it keeps getting hurt like this, really, like Ghost Critic said, I mean, this might be a book that I might not end up continue to read if it keeps going in this particular artistic direction. I have no problem with Tomasi's writing, but, you know, either Patrick Gleason does a full issue or get another artist to do the full issue, but don't toy with me, is what I'm saying, guys. But still a very solid issue all around, with as far as the writing and Patrick Gleason's art. So I would definitely say 4 out of 5 for Batman and Robin number 14. Now on to more of the Bat family, and that brings us to Batgirl number 14. Now Batgirl, to me, almost as much as Batman, is a title that I feel that really needs to be read to get more of the perspective of Death of the Family. Because Batgirl has had, I mean, well, aside from Batman and arguably Red Hood, has had the most wrong done to them by the Joker. I mean, the most, you know, the most direct, of course, you know, things have happened to, you know, to Barbara and to Jason, but I'm not picking up Red Hood and the Outlaws because, frankly, I don't like that book at all. So if somebody out there is reading Red Hood and the Outlaws and thinks that it's good, and maybe that I should pick up some of the Death of the Family books from that arc, I might give it a try. But until then, until I hear otherwise, I'm going to stay away from that. So this particular issue, basically we have Barbara is, you know, her mother has been, of course, kidnapped in the same fashion that the Joker came in to invade her own home. And she is kind of freaking out. And she gets this call from this mysterious voice who just seems to have to be the Joker after a certain point in time. And, you know, basically this voice is telling her to do these strange things, like, you know, sit down, have a sandwich, drink a glass of milk, and do everything that I tell you to do, or your mother is going to wind up dead. And some people are coming for you again. And you're allowed to get your work clothes on now. And of course these men burst through the door, 3 of them, you know, these just 3 huge guys. But instead of reacting how you might think she would, which is that of someone who just, you know, is reliving the trauma of everything that she's been through in regards to her being paralyzed, she instead finds something darker and more dangerous and stronger about herself in this moment, and she just lays some serious smack on these guys. You know, breaking legs, pointing guns in faces, because obviously she knows the line not to cross, but this is a lot more personal for her. She doesn't have the same exact moral compass that Batman had, the exact same code, and that is, I mean, it's certain, like I said, it's not that I feel that she would cross the line, but that if pushed hard enough, like maybe we're seeing in this issue, she possibly could. And when she's done laying the smack out, she gets, you know, the mysterious voice on the other end of the phone guides her where to go next. But she, you know, as, you know, and the voice says, you know, Batgirl, you know, basically saying, you know, Barbara, I know who you are. So she feels, okay, it's time to leave everything behind. I've got to leave this place. I've got to leave this life. Because I cannot allow the people around me, like Elysia, her roommate, to get caught into this crossfire. She basically says, look, just don't take anything, don't take anything but the cat, and get out of here. Just say it was a home invasion and go somewhere else. Do not come back here, and I will never see you again, and I'm sorry. And Elysia wants to help. She wants to come with. She's like, there's nothing, you know. She just kind of closes the door. She is literally closing this door on this chapter of her life because, you know, her worst fear, her worst nightmare, her worst enemy is back. And something that she's played in her mind 10,000 times finally comes to bear, which is there is a roller rink where the Joker is basically, he's killed everybody there with his toxin, his Joker toxin, you know, he puts on some skates, and there is Barbara's mother gagged and tied to a chair, and you know, he's, you know, just talking to her about, you know, how much he's missed the city, and you know, you get, you know, just all of his insane logic going on, just, you know, kind of, none of it all seems like he's controlled, like he's not unhinged, but he is unfettered. There's nothing he won't stop at doing to do what he needs to do. So of course Batgirl comes charging in and, you know, takes out the guards, but right before that, the voice on the other end of the phone that has led her there reveals who it actually is. And it's not the Joker. It's James Jr. And when that happened, I'm like, yes. Because I love the character of James Jr. and I love how Gail Simone is working him into this title and working his insanity into this title. So, you know, she busts through the door, and there's her mom, and there is the Joker. And she's thinking to herself, I could actually do it. I could probably actually do it. I could probably kill him. But she knows that's the wrong move. She has to let this somehow play itself out, because she does not want to risk another life, you know, especially her mother's, just when she's just got her back. And we have the Joker giving part of the breakdown of what his plans are, is that he is, you know, he talks about, you know, the tradition of putting the wedding, you know, the engagement ring onto the finger, because the Romans felt that there was a vein that connected directly from the heart to the ring finger. You know, the Vena Amarata, or Amarati, I can't remember exactly what he says. But, so again, it's Joker showing he's crazy, but he's smart. You know, this is not an uneducated man. He is, you know, very, very disturbed, but he is also very brilliant. And the strangest proposal of all is made to Batgirl, is that he wants her out of the way And the way that he sees to do that is to ask her with her mother's severed ring finger and the engagement ring that's on there to be his wife. And it's like, okay, the creep factor has just kicked in like 1,000-fold. Holy shit. I mean, this, I didn't know it was gonna get this fucking crazy, because that is only something that he would dare to dream of. Of course, he doesn't, it's still questionable whether or not he really knows that Barbara is Batgirl. Well, it's not really. I mean, you get the sense that, yes, he absolutely knows that Barbara is Batgirl, and what he's done to her, and despite all of that, and in fact, maybe because of that, that he wants her to do this, that he wants her to be his bride. And so, like I said, I mean, it's just like, I mean, you just feel your skin fucking crawl at that point in time. And it's like, okay, this is probably my favorite of all of the Simone Batgirl issues thus far. This was a really intense read from start to finish. When, you know, and I talked about just, you know, earlier on, I talked about how, you know, you do need to, of course, you need to build suspense, but you have to give it a rest for a bit. But when the Joker's involved, there isn't much time for the quiet moments, and especially with Barbara. Barbara has to be all about forward momentum, because if she stops for even a second, she might overthink this and might panic and might not have the strength to face him. So I mean, I understand the progression of the intensity in this issue, because this is the character. Essentially, the book's narrative is doubling as the character here. And this is something that really didn't occur to me the first time that I read it, but of course when I read it again, I got so much more out of it. Now, the only problem with this book, and it's not nearly as big of a problem as it was with Batman and Robin, but that this is, it does have, we have Ed Benes as the artist, but there is another penciler who does pop in. And it's kind of broken up into two halves. Ed Benes seems to do the first half when she's, you know, in her apartment, and then the other penciler, and I forget the name, seems to be doing the second half. It's not quite as jarring. I didn't really notice the transition until kind of closer to the end, because all of a sudden it's like, okay, this isn't Ed Benes anymore. Because I definitely recognize the art of Ed Benes, and this is not Ed Benes. So that was, you know, so when it got to that point, it was like, oh, it's okay, but it's just not as good as Benes' stuff. So, but, you know, that aside, this is still a really potent and powerful read. It got even better the second time that I read it. So this is really a 4.5 out of 5. Close to being one of my picks of the week. It was just a really strong read from beginning to end. A very compelling read, and just terrific. Terrific. Simone obviously has a real handle on this character, and it's really starting to show. So stepping away from the Bat family, let's talk about Demon Knights, number 14. So basically what we have here is that, you know, our gang is still in hell, with the exception of Jason Blood, who has been set. He is now out of hell and wants to go back to it. And of course, in the last issue, he was actually going to kill himself so that he can get back to hell to save Nimue, or Madame Xanadu, and see what can be done about his friends, because he really does kind of regard his fellow travelers as friends, or at least most of them. Probably not Vandal Savage, but at least Savage has proven himself to be an ally. So we get kind of less of kind of the more twisted versions of Hell, and we start to see more into Etrigan's plan. Because Jason basically is confronted, as you know, in the cliffhanger from the last issue, he's confronted by the questing queen Mordru, that they intend, you know, they want this to happen. They want to send Jason back to Hell. They want Etrigan out, so that they can kind of, you know, trace what happens and listen in on what's going on with Jason Blood when they send him to Hell. And of course, you know, they start to do just that, but in Hell we have Etrigan. He gives Xanadu back her magical powers and back her will, and whether or not this is part of his plan, and leaves her alone, kind of leaves her to do what she will, and whether or not this is part of kind of his secret evil plan to trick Lucifer. It doesn't seem like that, because it seems like he wants to he basically wants the to keep the souls of the demon knights, you know, or the group, whatever, the fellow combatants down in Hell, so that he can you know, so that Lucifer and Etrigan and their armies can lay siege to Avalon, just as the questing queen also wants, as we find out, and gain Lucifer's favor. Well, Lucifer seems mildly impressed by this, but again, I'm still very, very hesitant to believe that this is indeed Etrigan's plan. I think that he's setting Lucifer up for something, an even bigger fall. And we have our fellow knights kind of coming to a place where they're all, you know, where they are, you know, the band kind of gets back together. They all kind of find each other. You know, with, you know, Shining Knight obviously having the power of the Grail, having, you know, and, you know, Exoristos being kind of freed from where she was chained up, you know, just by the shores of Themyscira, you know, and El-Jabir, he unfortunately won't take any water, because he doesn't trust anything in this place. Vandal Savage is just kind of like, this is just another day at the office for me. I'm in Hell. And of course, you know, Madame Xanadu, you know, is able to converse somehow with her magics, through her magics, with Merlin. Not a conversation per se, but some kind of inkling as to how she and the rest of them can get out of Hell and into Avalon. And of course, again, this all part of everybody's plan is to follow, is for Lucifer and his army to follow them out of Hell, and again to lay siege to Avalon. But you know, and Etrigan, of course, is down there, and it seems like that the Shining Knight is right about to kill him, but then poof, he goes up, and Jason Blood comes down, and he's of course glad, you know, to be in Hell. But he's glad that Etrigan is out above, because maybe he can put a thorn in his plans. So, but of course, you know, everybody's doing exactly what the bad guys want them to do, and even they kind of realize that as they make their way out of Hell. But just before they make their way out, we have another secret revealed, that the Shining Knight tells to Exoristos. Is because she feels a strange kinship with Shining Knight, but doesn't know whether it's kind of the anima or the animus side of him, because of course the sexuality of Shining Knight is still to be determined, but not anymore, as Shining Knight reveals this, you know, well, that he is both male and female. So whether or not that is meant to imply that he is, that he is maybe a quote-unquote hermaphrodite, or whether he just has parts, not necessarily physical parts, but kind of almost psychic parts of both male and female in him, that he's of both worlds, is basically kind of what he's trying to say. Whether, like I said, whether that's meant to be literal or figurative, not quite sure, but definitely it's been kind of a long time coming. Of course, this is all leading to Cornell's finale, because they do eventually set foot on Avalon, and here are kind of the this army of possibly indestructible knights that are guarding Avalon, and they're just kind of these mindless drones, this mindless army that will do anything they can to basically stop any possible threat to Avalon. And we have Lucifer popping up into Avalon. So now we've got, he is ready to take on this army. But, whoop, here comes the questing queen and her hordes. So we've got 3 armies and our demon knights in the middle of it all. And so, because Cornell is leaving this issue, or leaving this series, I believe, after the next issue. So we've got a serious showdown coming right here, and we've got the possibility of a fucking epic battle this next issue. So I'm really looking forward to that. This was again kind of a confusing read at parts. But I'm really looking forward to the next issue. This is one of those comics, to me, it's never been great, but it's always been really, really high quality. So, for the most part, some issues, not so much, but for the most part, it is a really terrific read. It's been very consistent. It's never gotten really low. It's never gotten really high, but it's always just been pretty much really good. So again, another 4 out of 5 for Demon Knights number 14. I do, as much as I like Bernard Chang on this title, I do still miss Diogenes Neves, because I do think that he was a better artist for this book. Now on to The Phantom Stranger number 2. And I think that those of us who are really excited by the prospect of the first issue, were kind of let down by this one. I think that seems to be kind of the general consensus of this issue of The Phantom Stranger, is that here's a book that showed the 0 issue I liked, didn't love, but liked it. And here we had then the first actual issue seemed to be a lot stronger, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm getting into this now. But we have basically, we have Phantom Stranger, or AKA Philip Stark. I mean, you couldn't even change the fucking initials, really. Kind of playing at having a regular life. But, in the midst of this regular life, he is, greeted by, kind of on the astral plane, or the spiritual plane, whatever you want to call it, by Pandora. And she has retrieved her box, and she means to open it again. Because, all of the sins of the world were released, of course, when Pandora initially opened her box, but what was left in the box that nobody ever really talks about, what was left in the box after all the sins were gone, was hope. And that seems to be what she's trying to get at, but Phantom Stranger is basically saying, no way, no day, I am not letting you open this again. And she basically, promises that, well, if you don't work with me, if you don't help me, your whole little play life here is going to blow up in your face. And so he takes his family home, kind of gets there seems to be kind of a cold in the air, a whiff of something foul. And he sends, his wife and the kids upstairs because he knows that someone is there. He changes to the, cloaked, fedoraed, phantom stranger, and who is there but Belial, who is one of the sons of Trigon, one of the 3 sons of Trigon. And Belial's not there to threaten or to fight. He's just kind of there to give PS some kudos on sending their sister back to them. Of course, their sister being Raven. But also says, and Phantom Stranger says, this, this kind of torture that you're putting her through is not going to last forever, and someday it will come to a head, and, she will, eventually fight you, and I will be there on her side. And basically, Belial's saying, I don't think so, because you try this, your family's in for a world of hurt. And he shows his other brothers, to their aspects, and he's like, well, they're not nearly as friendly as I am. And so he's poof. And we see that, of course, the Phantom Stranger has the ability to stop time, in which we've seen him do that before in other books. But, we really see that, that we're reminded of that here as, he stopped time while his family was upstairs, so that while whatever's going on below, they didn't have to witness. So the kids are upstairs being goofy, and, he kind of reassures his wife, everything's cool, everything's fine, our life is totally normal, whatever. And of course the phone rings, and who's on the other end of this phone but Terrence 13, or aka Dr. 13, who was someone that was introduced in the 50s, but who kind of is a player in the occult universe of DC throughout the decades, and has teamed up with the Phantom Stranger when Phantom Stranger did have his own series back in the either the late 60s or the 70s, even appeared in Flashpoint. This is all thanks to Wikipedia, by the way, because I had no fucking clue who this guy was, but I did want to look it up before I started talking about this issue, because I had no idea who the hell this was. And it is problematic when you do have to consult Wikipedia to, for a story that just really started, because obviously, okay, we know who Raven is because Raven's a major player. We know who the Spectre is, and we know who Jim Corrigan is because they're major players in the DC Universe. Dr. 13, not so much. But he recently appeared in the New 52 in All-Star Western. And he, in the Old West, he was there fighting the Haunted Highwayman, who also appears here, and is destined to wipe the lineage of the 13s off the face of the planet. But Phantom Stranger's doing what he can to stop them, but they are the powers of hell seem to be perhaps more powerful sometimes than the powers of heaven, because ultimately the Phantom Stranger is kind of an agent of heaven. And does have some angelic abilities, but they seem to manifest themselves in very strange ways. And of course we cut away from that kind of almost climactic moment to this moment in which we see that Jim Corrigan is looking very actively for the Phantom Stranger. For what purpose? It seems like he's kind of pissed. Obviously, the first reaction that I had after reading this book was, wow, I really didn't really care about anything else that was going on here, especially when they had the reveal of Jim Corrigan. Because once you bring Jim Corrigan into a title, my mind immediately goes to, please bring back the Spectre, please give him his own title again, please give him his own title again. This must not continue. I have to have the Spectre again. And give it to somebody, like Jeff Lemire, or, somebody who's doing the really, who's doing kind of the occultish, dark stuff. That kind of stuff, and not Dan Didio. So aside from I admired the art in this issue, but the story just didn't do a whole lot for me. I mean, I appreciated the structure, but it was like it went seemingly nowhere. And like I said, when you have to consult Wikipedia to know what the hell is going on, unless you read every fucking title, which I think Dan DiDio is kind of banking on with this title, that you're kind of fucking yourself up. So this was a 2.5 out of 5. It's like I admire some of the effort here, but don't think for a second that everybody out there is reading every issue of the New 52, because that's just arrogant. So, especially with that being one of the $3.99 books. So, and something that I don't read anymore. So, that leads us on to my picks of the week. This was really hard, and I know at least one other person out there felt very similarly about this week's books, is how hard it was to pick a pick of the week. Ultimately, they're both, in their own right, brilliant books, but one just has a slight edge on the other. So I will start with what is could be measured in, nanometers, how close it was to being Book of the Week. And that is Saga number 7. What can I say here? The book itself, of course, starts with, we have, Hazel kind of bring us back, because it's been 2 months since we've had our last issue of this book, because I think, honestly, that Image and Vaughn were kind of waiting to see kind of the returns on the Saga, on the Saga trade, which I don't have yet, but I fully intend to get when I have some more money. And the returns were very good. It was a very high-selling book, even though it was taken away from Amazon briefly for reasons that were unknown. But it came back. I had my own kind of thoughts on that. Did it have to do with, the kind of very important and very controversial issue number 4 that I had a long talk about, if you remember back? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe there was just a problem with the printing. I have no idea. But for the meantime, we're coming back to Hazel kind of bringing us back into this world, not reintroducing us to the characters, but giving us some background specifically about Marco. That Marco and his parents, back when he was a kid, he's playing around, but they've gone to this very important site of this great battle between Wreath and oh fuck, I hate myself right now. Well, between the two warring factions, and you see, a lot of people, especially a lot of the Wreathers, if you will, getting just kind of slaughtered by the winged ones. And, the lesson there, as, because basically the mother casts a spell, she, cuts herself and casts a spell in which he is able to see everything that went on this battlefield when he was just a kid. And the lesson was to never forget what happened and to always hate the motherfuckers with the wings. And then, boom, we're in the present, we're caught up, and there's Mom and Dad. with Alana and Marco. And, of course, they've just kind of blasted Isabel to who knows where. And, you know, of course, this is a huge shock to the parents to see that he has indeed coupled with their people's sworn enemies. And basically just going forward from there, you know, Marco needs to, he needs to get Isabel back, because, not just because they had a deal, but because he, you know, has kind of a genuine affection for her. And so, you know, he uses these helmets that they bought that they've actually been able to use to kind of cleave their way into their you know, wooden rocket ship, and the mother follows him to make sure the kid stays out of trouble. And left on the ship is the father and Alana. And Alana is, you know, she's like, you know, and this is just so great that this happened that this had to happen while I'm in a towel. You know, I mean, just, it's moments like that that totally fucking make this book. I don't want to give too much away for those who haven't read it, but, you know, eventually, you know, there are kind of these very hostile, the hostilities are very much there, because it's the in-laws, for one thing. So, I mean, obviously, most of us can relate to that. You know, or not even necessarily in-laws, but just meeting the parents of your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, for the first time, and just knowing that they're going to be disapproving of you, or disapproving of the way that you've behaved, even if you're their own child, which is definitely what we see with the mother and Marco when they're down on the planet which they have, you know, which they've tracked, where Marco's tracked Isabel to, and there is some danger there, some really big danger with oh my god, I love Fiona Staples. I mean, it was just like, that is insane. I mean, those of you who've read it, you know what I'm talking about. But it was just like, oh my god, what the fuck am I looking at? I mean, it was so awesome. And then we have this, you know, we have these moments where we are able to see Hazel's internal monologue, her narration, if you will, I should say, because obviously she's just a baby. She doesn't have internal monologue yet. But, you know, and, you know, basically, Alana just being, you know, kind of totally the alpha dog of this pack, you know, just saying, you know, stay away from me, stay away from my child, and we'll be just fine with, you know, with Marco's father. And, you know, saying things like, you know, well, this ship has seen me naked, so I think it'll pretty much do whatever I say. And, but, you know, there is one spell that he can still cast, but it has to involve a secret that he's never told anybody before. And the reveal of that secret is huge. Not for the things that, you know, it's no secret of anything that's happened before, but it is, you know, it's on a personal level for the characters involved, it's huge. And, you know, in the midst of all of this, we have, you know, glimpses of Prince Robot IV, and we have glimpses of the Will. You know, the Will, obviously, you know, kind of in a weird emotional state, as he's kind of, you know, very kind of melancholy. He's watching sex tapes that he's made of himself and the Stalk. and Prince Robot just doing whatever he can to find, you know, these two errants. You know, basically their union and what it signifies for their, you know, for the empires that are kind of under their, you know, basically the forces that they represent. What really, and again, the dialogue, the art, just absolutely sparkles. Staples does arguably her best work yet on this particular issue. Just so many different kind of color palettes that she uses here. Some darker colors, but you know, like it seems, you know, sort of more painted in some areas. It seems, you know, more penciled in others. You know, there's strict definition to certain pages, and you know, kind of more of a impressionist, you know, feel to others. And of course, you know, Vaughn, I mean, he obviously, we know, is a master of dialogue, especially when it comes to just being real. Is that you get these characters, you get their emotions, you understand where they're coming from, despite the fact that in a lot of cases you've just met them for the first time. But he makes their characters so three-dimensional. And God, do I love Alana. I mean, she's such a great character. And in this kind of day and age where, you know, we have all of these super male characters, we have this great, totally independent, and very original female character. And that, unfortunately, is something that is something of a rarity. But, you know, Vaughn has obviously done that in all of his books. You know, had, you know, these kind of strong female characters. Ex Machina, not quite as well defined there, obviously in Y the Last Man with, you know, Allison Mann and 355, and just, you know, all of the, you know, the females that populated that world. I mean, Hero, Victoria, I mean, just all of these very strong, powerful female characters that are stronger than the men. And that's, you know, again, what we have here is that we even see, yes, the mother is stronger than the father. Alana is stronger than Marco. More forceful, more, I mean, not that the characters are stronger, but just to have these strong, great characters that are male, that are female, whatever. You know, it's just, it's one of these things that Vaughn is a master of making fully realized, totally three-dimensional characters, making them, and making the situations that they're in, no matter how, you know, ridiculous they may seem or how absurd they may seem to us as regular human beings, that they are real and that they exist in these pages, and they are absolutely 100% relatable from every aspect. We understand their motivations, we understand where they're coming from, we understand where they meet, and we are guessing as to where they're going to go from here. This is just one of those brilliant titles, just, again, just keeps coming you back for more and more and more and more and more. Saga absolutely, undoubtedly, almost unforgivingly takes the cake as far as the best new comic of this year. I mean, it is so far beyond, you know, anything else that's come out that's been new in this last year that it's just ridiculous. I mean, I don't even know if I need to give a rating on this, but it's an absolute ass-kicking 5 out of 5. A little bit beyond 5 out of 5. That, of course, brings us to the pick of the week. And you gotta know what it is already. Batman number 14. Represent. Anyway, so we have this opening in which we have Harley, you know, Batman is in the vat of Joker's toxin, is just dumping in there. And Harley is saying that she actually hopes, like she always has, that Batman will come out and be the better version of the Joker. That it will be an improvement for him, it'll be an improvement for her, it'll maybe be someone that she could maybe see herself loving again, because she's lost her Puddin'. She's lost her Mr. J, and she's hoping that Batman will come out as a better Mr. J. Of course, that is not to be, because Batman, if nothing else, is very resourceful, and we have this great moment of internal monologue where he is talking about, you know, how many times he's analyzed the Joker toxin, and, you know, just even when he's, you know, when he can't sleep, he'll come down to the Batcave, he'll look at it on a slide again, and he'll keep analyzing it and analyzing it and analyzing it, but ultimately, you know, the conclusion that he keeps coming to is exactly the same. There is nothing in this mixture but death. Now, he is able to extricate himself from this death trap, but obviously it's taken a bit of a toll on his costume, so he heads back home to kind of lick his wounds a bit, but Alfred is nowhere to be found. All that's there is a cassette tape wrapped in a package with purple and green wrapping. Purple packaging and a green bow. Oh no. Oh no. He puts the tape into his tape deck and starts listening to it, and of course, you know, he hears the Joker. And he hears Alfred. And he hears Alfred, you know, saying, you know, blindfolding me won't frighten me. And, you know, then you hear kind of this, you know, smacking sound. It's like, hey, you know, enough, Jeeves, as Joker, you know, says. And, you know, he goes on to say, you know what, you're not blindfolded, Alfred. It's the ammonia that I've been pouring in your eyes. Perhaps you'd like some more. And then you hear Alfred screaming. And then there is this great panel of the tape deck when it's on, you know, because when you turn, you know, sometimes when you turn these devices on, stereo equipment, you have kind of like the green lines of the equalizer kind of going off or something like that, and you have kind of the, you know, the glowing red power on the knobs that, you know, that signify that the device is on, and these somehow form these, you know, these eyes and this mouth, you know, the green eyes and this red kind of mouth around the tape deck and its entrance, which, you know, ultimately is the mouth, and of course Batman just smashes the fucking thing. And he takes a look at the tape, and he goes to visit Jim Gordon, because he's able to see that the label on the tape, custom printed, and has the word Gordon on it. There's no such company that produces any kind of cassette tapes. It's, you know, like I said, it's custom made, so this is obviously a threat. And this is the only part that I was really kind of fuzzy on, and that is when he goes to visit Gordon, he starts to hemorrhage after he's touched a picture of, you know, of his wife and of, you know, and of little Barbara, and he just starts to hemorrhage. And, you know, there's this great moment where he's just kind of bleeding out, and Batman is kind of holding him, and, you know, he's able to administer, you know, some coagulant in time, So, takes him to the hospital, and here comes Nightwing. And, you know, he's speaking in code about Alfred being kidnapped. And, you know, that, you know, he keeps referring to him as Wayne's butler. And, you know, Nightwing is like, hey, fuck protocol right now, man. You know, do not, you know, this is Alfred we're talking about. And, you know, Batman is, he's furious. Not, of course, at Dick, but just at the whole situation, kind of at himself. Because, you know, don't you think I know that? I mean, this is Alfred. I mean, you know, he's been my father for however many years. And, you know, he's out there and this sick maniac has him. And I don't know what I need to do to get him back, but all I do know is that you have to stay away, as far away from it as possible. Because I know what his next move is. He's going back to the reservoir. Back to the first place where they truly met and they truly looked inside of each other and saw what the other was. Because when Joker decided to poison the reservoir, or threatened to poison the reservoir, and you know, we have this moment in which maybe a little bit of an homage to Dark Knight Returns, but they meet atop this bridge. But I'm sorry, before that, Batman is racing there on the Bat-cycle to where he knows the Joker will be, and he has another great bit of internal monologue where he's saying, do not think about Alfred, don't think about his voice kind of keeping you abreast of things that are going on. Don't think about how reassuring his voice is. Just focus on what you need to do to get him back and to stop this maniac, to stop the Joker. And so he finally arrives, and again in this, you know, like I said, maybe homage to, you know, Dark Knight Returns, Joker says, "Hello, darling." And you get this strange feeling atop this bridge of, you know, at the reservoir, of intimacy between the two. That somehow the only people that know them the way that they do are each other. No one will know the Joker better than Batman. And at least from the Joker's perspective, and possibly from the audience's as well, no one will know Batman as well as the Joker does. They are like this twisted, this twisted almost romance. It is, and it's interesting that Ghost Critic says something about this, because it is like that the Joker has this twisted, crazed affection for Batman, because he won't kill him, won't do it. It's more fun for him to let Batman live. And this is where we get to what Death of the Family is really all about. And that he, you know, because we see again the Joker fully in control. He's not totally batshit crazy, excuse the pun. He is insane, but he is brilliant. He is several steps ahead of Batman at this point in time. He even says, you know, I know this is how this is going to play out. You're going to throw, you know, you're going to throw your battery. You're going to try and knock me out before I press the, you know, before I release the poison into the reservoir. But you know what? The hell with all that. You know, your little buddy Nightwing is arriving at the reservoir right now, and he, you know, and that gets blown up right in Nightwing's face. And the people that would be affected by this poison, you know, these yuppies in this, you know, in this super condo or whatever, well, they're already dead. I already poisoned them. And Batman looks below, and there is just, you know, just kind of in the reservoir, there's this sea of bodies. And of course, this, you know, gets Batman even more crazed, and all of these, you know, the chattering teeth pop out of the water, and they ensnare Batman and just wrap him up. And this is where Joker starts to reveal what his plan is that Batman was so much better and a lot more fun when he was all alone. None of these sidekicks, none of these family members. And that's what the Joker's plan really, truly is to get rid of Batman's extended family. And just have it be the two of them. Just Batman and the Joker. Because Batman was better without the Bat family. And like I said, if you haven't read it yet, I'm not going to spoil it. What we see, what is revealed at the end there, what the Joker's real plan is, and how he intends to carry it out. Then we get a coda where we have Snyder and James Tynion and Jock. And we have a tale of the Joker and the Penguin. And basically it is the Joker has taken this, the Penguin heads out to this church with a couple of his tough guys, and the Joker instantly kills them after they've entered into this church in which many of the top lieutenants of Gotham's organized crime are all there, and they're all dead. They've all been killed by one of Penguin's, killer umbrellas. And basically a proposition is made to Penguin, and we get to see again just how much of perhaps a death wish that the Joker has, is that he's willing to take the rap for all of this. He doesn't give a crap about organized crime. He just wants the Penguin's attention. And he has, like I said, a proposition for him. What that is, we don't really know yet, but we know if that the Penguin refuses, guess who's going to get blamed for everything that just happened? So first of all, there's the art. Greg Capullo, of course, just continuing to tear it up, with the exception of one panel. There was one panel I did have a problem with. Not a big problem, but it just seemed weird. I know the expression that he was going for, but it's basically on the just outside of Jim Gordon's room where Bruce and Dick are meeting, and it's just after Bruce has told Dick about Alfred and what's going on with him, and there seems to be almost a smile on Dick's face. I know that it may just be, maybe Jonathan Glapion, the inker, seemed to, I don't know, slack off for a second there, but the expression on his face almost seems like he's kind of smiling. But you get kind of a three-quarters profile there. So I mean, I know that he wasn't smiling there, but it just kind of threw me. It's like, why the fuck is he smiling? But it's like, I know he's not smiling. He's like gritting or, just something. Because that's obviously not the emotion that he would have. So, I mean, to even think that he would have purposely drawn it that way was absurd. So that was the only thing, and like I said, that's totally forgivable because we know the intent, and the rest of the art throughout the rest of the issue is just fucking incredible. And I mean, Snyder, I am not worthy to receive you. It is just, I mean, he is just, this isn't as good as issue 13, but it's really fucking close. Because it does have, again, quiet beats. Has moments of, people keep talking about, and I have talked about, how kind of excessively verbose that Snyder can get, but there are times he knows to kind of ratchet it back, not to overwrite it. I know that this was a big thing, Sleepy Reader out there, we had kind of this discussion about issue 11, the finale of the Court of Owls, or the Night of the Owls, I should say, where it seemed to be really verbose, and that I do kind of agree with, but to me it worked. Some people it didn't, but this was really, I didn't feel that he was being overly verbose, that he wasn't overwriting it, that he was writing it perfectly. I mean, this is, this and Saga, they're about as fucking close as you can get to perfection in comics right now. Also, there's Hawkeye. That perfection may change soon, because I know that David Aja, at least, is going to be offered for at least one issue. I know that I believe there's actually going to be another writer that might do an issue or two of Hawkeye, which really might throw it off of its rhythms. But of course, I'll have to wait to see to pass judgment on that. But oh my god, I mean, just everything that's going on in this issue, the fact that he's that we see Batman using his detective skills, using his knowledge, but just being hopelessly outmaneuvered by the Joker, because he's had a year to plan this, and which is why he was able to dose Gordon with the with whatever he used. I think it was heparin or something like that, and to organize to kill all of these people, and to organize the explosion at the reservoir, and just everything. I mean, it's just Batman. He knows he's not being outclassed, but being outmatched. He's being out thought, if you will. He's not prepared, because this came out of nowhere, and all the cards are really stacked against him. And what do you get in a stacked deck of cards? The Joker is always wild. Just unbelievable. Brilliant, brilliant stuff. I mean, this is one of those books where it's just like, I mean, you are literally, again, tearing the pages off the calendar to get to the next issue, because it must come as soon as it's humanly fucking possible. It reminds me of that episode of South Park where Cartman tries to freeze himself because he can't wait for the Nintendo Wii to come out, or whatever the peripheral was. It was I don't know if it was the Game Boy, whatever. But it's like you kind of want to do that. You just kind of want to go into suspended animation for the next 3 weeks. But, this week, tomorrow, we've got Indestructible Hulk coming out. I think we have the next issue of Daredevil, I think, also is coming out tomorrow. We've got some potentially really good stuff coming out this week, although this is kind of a light week because, of course, it's Thanksgiving. So that is where I'm going to leave off for tonight. Thank you all for watching. Obviously, this has been, I think if you put these two videos together, I think you're going to have at least 3 hours. But it was worth it to get through all this stuff, and to hopefully that you enjoyed it, that, comment. Tell me what you're thinking. Agree, disagree, thumb it up, thumb it down. Critique, complain, whatever you want to do, but just let me know what you're thinking out there, people. Let's get this comic book community rolling. Let's hear back from you. I want to give to you. I want you to give back to me. It's better for me to give than to receive, which is why I'm giving all this stuff out to you, which is why I do it for so goddamn fucking long each time. You know what I'm saying, people? You know what I'm saying. So that is it for this week's New Comics, bitches! So, for those of you who are celebrating, happy Thanksgiving. Hope you have a great Thanksgiving. Hope you have a great rest of your week. I am out of here. This is James Donnelly from the Shadow Gallery, signing off and reminding you, as always, to stay in the shadow.